And she had told the police she was filing, the police said that she had filed a restraining order against me. And I knew that I had to contest that. So my first and most immediate thing that I had to do was to get to the right courthouse and and contest it. And I basically was sort of being held hostage there at first. I remember that, you know, he said one time, he said, you know, if you want to get something to eat or whatever, he said to go grab something to eat and whatever. So Alvaro gave me a little bit of money to just go out and get something to eat in the area. But, you know, it wasn't at all like he had talked about or promised any kind of money or something. Then I was with him and then something happened. It was more like we were together, and then he said, if you want to get something to eat, and he knew I didn't have very much money. And then the other thing is I had just been forced out of my job. So I was basically being forced to be reliant and dependent upon someone. Which is maybe how the CIA works these days, you know, and the FBI. Maybe that's just how things are done. I remember someone parked outside the place one time. I looked out the window and it looked like somebody was crying. They were in a van and they were crying. I thought maybe I was under surveillance, and I kind of thought they were crying, but I was probably wrong. And I thought, do they know something is really off? You know, does this person that looks kind of upset about something, maybe they know that something really bad is happening or being set up against me. They can't say anything. I wasn't sure. I didn't know what to think. The only other person that I met in that house was a black woman. She seemed nice. She was African American, and she was. I only met her a couple of times. She was like in the kitchen, and she was a nurse. So I don't remember which hospital she worked at, but I just know that she was a nurse. She was a professional, and I didn't think there was anything wrong with her. I didn't sense anything wrong about her. And that was it. I don't, if there were other housemates, I never saw them. The only person I saw was her. Then after basically I was kind of stuck there. I didn't know where the buses were. The buses were actually were kind of far away, and there was no Wi-Fi there at the place. At the condo, there was nothing really nearby. I was kind of in the middle of nowhere. It looked like I was in a wooded area. Like there were condos in a wooded area. It wasn't next to any kind of a road. And I think he drove me out a couple times to meet other people and have dinner and that kind of thing a few times, but I kept saying I need to get to the courthouse, and I had this feeling that there were people who were trying to keep me from going to the courthouse. I felt that somebody was telling someone to make it hard for me to go there because they didn't want me to file something to defend myself. And when I finally got there, I mean, like weeks were going by, and I just felt like I was trapped. And I figured out how to take how the bus worked, but I think even that I couldn't figure out. There's something to do with I needed the car. Like I couldn't figure out all the different bus connections, or I didn't have money, or I don't remember what it was. In some small way, I was trapped. Like I kind of felt like I was in a trapped situation. In the sense of I needed to get to the courthouse and nobody was taking me there. And I could not figure out a way to get there on my own with the resources that I had. And finally, when I did get there, I think that I went out. Maybe I did take the bus a couple places and started looking around, and after that, I believe my fiance allowed me to take the car, But like several weeks had gone by, and I did drive then finally to the courthouse, but it was a lot later. And I checked with the courthouse because I wanted to contest and needed to figure out how to have a hearing to object to this restraining order so that I didn't sound crazy, because she claimed in this report that she made, the woman from Nigeria claimed that I had held a knife against her. So, and I don't think that I knew that part until I got to the courthouse. I think I had, or maybe I did. I don't remember if the police gave me a copy of the report and the restraining order, or if I found out then. I would say probably the police gave me a copy of that, if maybe even the document. So possibly I had already read that she was claiming that I held a knife against her. And, you know, I had not ever held a knife against her. I never held a knife in that house. I remembered, like, now it's been a lot more time, but I remember when I was first blogging about this situation, I remembered exactly what kinds of things I did at the house. And I didn't even eat food there that required, like, a cutting knife. I didn't have a knife on me either. Like, I didn't have a pocket knife or anything. And I didn't make food there that required a cutting knife. I used a butter knife to butter bread. And that was the only kind of knife that I remember when I was first blogging about this I could recall ever using. And I was definitely not psychotic. I was not waving around some kind of I've just never done that, ever. And to have somebody lie about something like that is really damaging if you don't challenge it. Because if you don't challenge something like that, it's assumed that, oh my gosh, maybe I really did do that. Or, you know, some people assume maybe she did do that. Like, who would make up such a crazy lie? Who? But except for maybe the CIA. And so it was very important for me to challenge that, and especially with my case with my son, because I was like, oh, I just know that Washington State will happily use something like that. That makes me sound crazy. Here I am trying to make a new start on a different part of the country, and then I get something like that against me. That basically has just trashed everything good that I have been able to do for myself in the public eye by proving to people that I'm not nuts. Looks like okay, maybe she was working, like maybe I was working as a waitress, and yeah, I was working in the public eye, and then what? I had another quote-unquote psychotic break. I never had any psychotic breaks. There is no psychosis. There has never been a nervous breakdown. I've already stated, yes, I've had meltdowns, like, okay, like anybody had who's had a bad day and a bad string of events, and then you just lose it, like you get upset or start crying or whatever. Meltdowns, normal meltdowns, yes. But breakdowns, never. So I went, I felt like I was being trapped to not contest this thing, and then I tried to make an effort to do it, and finally I was not able to even get to that courthouse until we had moved out of that condo, and we were living with a woman from Colombia, and he found he was able to get a new place. So he was renting a room, or like a basement, downstairs basement, from a woman that he had met from Colombia, and he was Colombian, so he somehow met her. And then we were staying at a house in Germantown, Maryland, instead of the condo. And when we were at the condo, I remember just trying to put things out of my mind as to, feeling set up about the door being locked and all of that, and just trying to forget about that. And so I thought that we laughed a few times. I thought he had a good personality, and he was saying that he wanted to help me with my son. He was hoping I could get my son back. I was hoping I could get my son back. I thought maybe something would work out. And then he also asked me eventually about getting married. And that happened after we were already, like, intimate together. It wasn't, nothing was said about that beforehand. So, I remember kind of wondering if he was recording me on his cell phone, if somebody was listening in, because of some of the questions he asked. I had this weird feeling that something was being documented in some way. I don't know why, but I did. And then I asked him, you know, why he went, he said he also wanted to work and what kind of work he did, and I asked him why he wanted to be in the United States, that kind of thing. And I remember at one point he said, you are a good person, like he was shocked that I was. Like that maybe for some reason he had come to the conclusion or had the idea that I was a good person, and he was sort of surprised to discover I was a good person. So I don't really know what maybe somebody, I don't remember why he said that either. I said something about something. And I guess it impressed him in some way, but I really don't know why that caused him to say that he thought I was a good person. He didn't say it like artificially. That was one time when he said it like he meant it. And then it was after that that he, at some point that he asked me to marry him. And then we were in this house, a different house, with a Colombian woman and renting the basement. And it wasn't until maybe, it was like several weeks after I was at that house, and then that I was finally able to use the car to drive to Maryland to the courthouse so that I could fix this matter about, you know, supposedly wielding a knife. And the thing that was really, that made it sound weird, which I think maybe has been replicated, is her report sounded like she was sort of an uneducated person, like there were tons of misspellings and the grammar wasn't really correct. So anybody who looked at that would never think, I mean, I would never think this is somebody that the CIA works with, because you would always assume that the CIA only works with people who can spell like most of their words and write complete sentences and that kind of thing. And so it almost belied the fact that she had some skills, you know, for one, her karate chopping, that she got from people who were pretty high up. And why I thought, well, it's possible, you know, people from other countries, they don't always know how to spell or how to construct words, so that's a natural thing that I've been used to seeing as a tutor. But it was kind of like she was writing crazy things too. It was just the whole combination made me think, is she trying to play herself down a little bit? So that it doesn't look so suspicious, like that she's working with an organization that is professional. And it was by the time that I was going to the courthouse to try to contest that, Alvaro was sort of mad, a little bit upset at me, I think, and possibly was already cheating on me, and maybe was thinking or being had somebody telling him, you know, maybe you can break off this relationship and maybe you can be with someone else, because I remember that. And then I asked him later I even asked him, I said, so what happened at that one point? And I said, and your friends acted differently towards me and everything. He said, well, when they heard that you were with me, but you weren't always wanting to kiss me, because he'd ask for a kiss and then I wouldn't sometimes.